Understanding the Manipur conflict. A deep dive into the Kuki community's struggles. The northeastern Indian state of Manipur has witnessed a brutal ethnic conflict since May 2023, primarily between the Meitei and Kuki communities. What began as a political and legal dispute has spiraled into a full-scale humanitarian crisis. Thousands have been displaced, hundreds have lost their lives, and entire communities have been fractured beyond repair. This article seeks to provide a clear understanding of the Kuki perspective, outlining the injustices faced, the factors that led to the conflict, and the grim reality they continue to endure. 1. The Kuki identity and historical roots. The Kuki people are one of the indigenous ethnic groups in Manipur with a historical presence in the hill regions. These territories, often referred to as Kuki land, are not new settlements but ancestral lands governed traditionally by Kuki chiefs. Despite being the second largest ethnic community in Manipur, Kukis have long battled stereotyping and marginalization, wrongfully branded as foreigners, refugees, or land encroachers by certain valley-based groups. In truth, Kukis are native to their lands, and other groups are attempting to rewrite that history to assert political dominance. Second, systemic marginalization. After 2023 government formation. Following the formation of the Biren Singh-led BJP government in 2023, tensions escalated as Kukis were increasingly sidelined from key administrative and developmental processes. One glaring example was the resignation of Kuki MLA TT Haukip, who accused the state government of diverting central funds meant for his Kuki majority constituency toward constructing infrastructure, such as a high-quality road from Imphal to Ukhrul. His resignation was not just political, it was symbolic of a broader pattern of targeted neglect. Third, ancestral land declared reserve forests without consent. A major flashpoint has been the unilateral declaration of traditional Kuki lands as reserved or protected forests by the state. These decisions were made without the consent of the local Kuki chiefs or the community, undermining customary law and invalidating their legitimate rights over ancestral lands. This classification served as a legal cover for forced evictions and suppression of native habitation rights. Fourth, 3rd May 2023, the turning point. The situation exploded on 3rd May 2023 when a peaceful tribal solidarity march opposing the Meitei's demand for scheduled tribe, ST status, turned violent. Clashes broke out across the state. The march was intended to preserve the status quo and resist attempts by the dominant Meitei community to gain further advantage under the guise of tribal status. What followed was widespread arson, looting, and targeted attacks, especially against the Kuki population. 5. Institutional bias and collapsed governance. Multiple sources, including video footage, revealed the complicity or passive inaction of Manipur police and state security forces during attacks on Kuki villages. Security forces were allegedly seen assisting armed Meitei groups or simply standing by as violence erupted. This shattered the confidence of the Kuki people in state institutions and law enforcement agencies. 6. Forced evictions and settlements lost. Kuki villages and properties, especially in Imphal and adjoining valley regions, were burned, looted, and seized. Many families were displaced overnight. Shockingly, soon after the violence began, signs for new institutions such as Churachandpur Medical College were found relocated to areas within Imphal, symbolizing a systematic effort to erase Kuki presence from the valley. 7th, massive displacement of the Kuki population. The violence resulted in the displacement of more than 60,000 people, the majority being Kukis. Forced into refugee camps and makeshift shelters, many of these families continue to live in dire conditions with little access to food, healthcare, education, or psychological support. Relief efforts have largely been led by community groups, churches, and volunteers. 8. Community defense and local resistance. With trust in the state completely broken, local Kuki communities form defense groups to protect their villages and camps. These include youth-led groups and village-level defense forces that aim to deter future attacks and safeguard lives in the absence of adequate state protection. 9. Social and physical segregation. Manipur is now physically and socially divided. The once interwoven lives of the Meitei and Kuki communities have been replaced by permanent separation. Boundaries are guarded, checkpoints have mushroomed, and mistrust runs deep. The Hill-Valley divide is no longer metaphorical. It is a lived reality enforced by daily violence and fear. 10th, Kuki territories targeted under forest acts. The Meitei-led government's use of forest laws to undermine Kuki settlements represents another layer of institutional discrimination. Kuki villages were labeled as encroachments and destroyed or declared illegal without due process. This systematic erasure of Kuki land rights continues under the guise of environmental conservation. 11th, demand for a separate administrative unit. In light of the violence and institutional bias, Kuki civil society organizations, tribal bodies, and political leaders have demanded a separate administrative arrangement. They argue that coexistence within the current framework is no longer possible. The proposal includes a separate union territory or equivalent governance that would allow Kukas to live with dignity, safety, and political autonomy. 12th, central government imposes direct rule. Following months of unchecked violence and the collapse of law and order, the Indian government imposed president's rule in Manipur in early 2025. Chief Minister N. Biren Singh resigned under immense pressure. While this intervention was welcomed by many as a first step toward neutrality, its effectiveness in resolving the crisis remains uncertain. 13. Meitei militias and cross-community hatred. Armed Meitei militias, some with links to extremist organizations, have been accused of planning and executing targeted attacks. Several videos surfaced showing well-organized attacks on Kuki homes and churches, reinforcing the argument that this was not just ethnic violence, but a campaign of ethnic cleansing. 14. Crippling economic fallout and psychological trauma. The conflict has wrecked the economy of the Hill districts. Agriculture, trade, and education have all come to a standstill. Children have lost years of schooling, and families have lost generations of accumulated wealth. Additionally, the psychological trauma, especially among women and children, is immense. With no organized mental health response, this trauma is likely to have long-term effects on Kuki society. 15th, a point of no return. Separation is now the only solution. The scar runs too deep. The hatred between the two communities, Kuki and Meitei, has reached a point of no return. Years of coexistence have now been shattered by betrayal, brutality, and systemic targeting. A peaceful future together is no longer realistic. For lasting peace and the survival of the Kuki community, separation is essential. A distinct administrative setup, whether union territory, statehood, or autonomous council, is now widely recognized as the only viable path forward. Reconciliation without autonomy is a hollow promise. Disclaimer: all the above information has been compiled from publicly available news articles, local media reports, and community sources. Zalangam Media is not responsible for the original content or its reproduction in any format. This article is intended purely for educational and awareness purposes, and the information has been presented to amplify marginalized voices through journalistic means. If you found this article informative, subscribe to Zalangam Media for more in-depth updates, news reports, and ground-level coverage on Northeast India and the Kuki community.